Despite the looming possibility of restrictions being eased in the metro and areas under modified enhanced community quarantine, most organizations aren't so keen just yet on, on deploying their full workforce. And with the work from home setup expected to stay in place for the near future, how can organizations better adapt to an extended workplace? Now, to share her thoughts with us, we have Vera, the CEO of Talent View. Good morning, Ange. Great to have you here with us on the show. Ange, let's get right to it. For how long do you think this extended workplace setup is going to last beyond the pandemic? Do you think it's here to stay? It's here to stay, and that organizations might have to rethink the way they do things from here on?
Right. Good morning, Jess. Thank you for having me. Of course, the pandemic, we really wish that it would be better soon. But we're seeing companies now globally announcing even extending the work from home setup until next year. So this is not a surprise for us. We might even see some larger companies here, such as the BPOs, extending this setup for their respective companies.
But regarding that, do you think the hybrid model will work at this stage? And how should companies actually rationalize their workforce? Like, for example, do you put in 50% of the workforce going physically to the office, and at the same time you have another 50% going to at least doing work from home? So what's the ideal setup there?
Right. So I guess it's not one size fits all. We'll really have to look at the industry that the company is in. They have to make sure that at the end of the day, they serve their customers. That's the only way that they'll be able to sustain themselves during this crisis. And we've also designed what we call an extended workplace design at Talent View, just talking about the 6 critical things that are important for every company to consider. So although there's no one size fits all, there are 6 things that you should check off your checklist to make sure that you can sustain your business. The first one is enhanced leadership communication. Leaders have to be at the very forefront of this. They have to make the announcements. They have to show care. They have to be enabling productive work, as you mentioned, right? People have to remain productive, whether that's in the office or whether that's through their homes or their extended workplace. The second is resilient implementation. Whatever technologies you're using, it must be able to run on mobile phones, on laptops, on personal computers, whatever devices your employees currently have. You can't insist that your server is at the office and everybody needs to be at the office regardless of the situation. The third is a culture and collaboration mindset. You definitely want to be thinking of this to make sure that you're taking care of your employees, to make sure that you're maintaining your company culture or even evolving it during this time, and making sure that still people work together even in the extended workplace environment. There's, of course, this is a given. I'm not going to go through the reliable and secure connectivity. We need this. We can't really work if there's no internet that's acceptable at the current speed to serve our customers. Integration, optimized integration is also key. So putting together pieces of technology that take out redundant work, that allow people to be more efficient as they're running their day-to-day operations. And the last is data-driven change, taking a look at data and managing the changes that you need on an ongoing basis. Jess.
But I guess also that's easier said than done, that companies really have to adjust. Question now is, how exactly do they actually overcome challenges when it comes to connectivity? It's pretty much, of course, with the Philippines still lagging on that front.
Absolutely. That's always a given, right? Internet will always be a challenge. But I guess the trick there and the thing organizations need to consider is what technologies will run with the lowest possible bandwidth. And that's where you have all these messenger apps, collaboration tools, even recruitment tools that should allow you to put things together and become, seamless in the way that you're doing things, even if internet is going to be a restriction or a challenge for sure.
So, given that, what exact technologies should companies invest in, and where do you think is technology headed today?
All right. So you're looking at chat apps, you're looking at collaboration tools. So as a default, some of the small and medium enterprises, they're probably using Viber, they're probably using a Facebook Messenger, but you've got to evolve from that if you're a larger organization. You need to look at tools like Workplace, which are collaboration platforms, allowing you to share video, go live, reach out to employees, work on projects, work on any tasks and culture activities that you have. we're even sharing on screen sample reports of recruitment technology. So obviously recruitment must carry on, must continue, but you can't do any job fairs, right? So how do you address that? You have video interview technology, you have virtual job fair technology that you can get into. There's a lot that you can explore, but I guess it always goes back also just to your objectives. Where are
Mhm.
you now with your people setup? Is it about maintaining and strengthening your current employees and your current culture? Or is it about growing and adding more people to your organization at this point?
Okay, let's touch more on recruitment later, but for now, let's focus more on the digital work that's happening at least. One of the challenges as well would have to be security. That definitely is going to be a risk. How will firms protect their company in terms of data security and management?
Mhm. All right. That's really a great question because a lot of the tools we're using now, whether these are Viber, WhatsApp, Messenger, these are consumer tools. And that means you see ads. That means you don't own your data. And again, if you're a larger organization and you want to make sure that the data of your customers is secure, the data of your employees are secure, you definitely need to look at enterprise applications. You need to look at tools that at the end of the day, you practically own that data and have control over how you use that data. So again, it will be tweaked, I guess, based on the size and nature of your organization, Jess.
And then at the same time, on one hand, you also have to be concerned about how you handle corruption and fraud within the company, given the lack of physical supervision. So, how's this going to change things?
Absolutely. So you've got your banks, right, which are essential services, having their workforce work remotely. You've got BPOs that have very confidential information, sometimes also serving financial institutions. So again, aside from making sure that the applications you use are enterprise applications, you definitely also want to pound on that culture and pound on that leadership side of things. So I was talking earlier about enhanced leadership communication. At the end of the day, there will really be people who, if they want to circumnavigate some rules, it also happens in the live workplace anyway, right? So again, it has to be about culture building. It's not a soft thing to worry about, especially during this time. It's about thinking of your values and making sure these values translate to the people that are working in their extended workplaces, even as they're doing their works individually and collaborating through apps and technology.
And maybe that's precisely the reason as well. That's why that's the first phase of the design that you guys developed as well. Now,
Absolutely.
Now, question is this going to be a healthy way of doing things, at least from the point of view of the employee? Because time and again, we've heard people complain of longer work hours given this current setup and how a work from home model has pretty much blurred the work life balance for some of them.
Correct. That's absolutely true. We were hearing the same thing. And I guess this is where we find ourselves in, right? It's forced digital disruption. A lot of companies always talk about this, but they haven't really had that 100% push. But because of this crisis, it really is a forced digital disruption where we have no choice. A lot of companies still don't have 100% of their workforce in their offices, in their workplaces. And so you've got to work with that extended workplace where your employees are, and because of that you have to find a way, to power through, I would say. That's really all there is. So for the employee side, you have to start thinking about how to schedule that also from an employee standpoint, managing their work day to day, even if they're not in the office. You're right, where you're right in what you said, where people sometimes feel burnout because they don't have a schedule, they don't have a routine, and that's something that organizations have to come to terms with and work on. There is influence that we can pass on when we're working with our employees. So whether that's structuring their meetings within certain hours, or whether that's even providing support, wellness activities, engagement activities for them to get more balance in their day, that's something that companies should definitely influence.
So you think also it's about time, given if companies are going to pursue this hybrid model, it's about time for them to actually rethink as well the structure by which they actually deploy work to their employees, given the digital setup.
Absolutely. It's the right tools and the right strategy to manage the workforce in this kind of hybrid setup, as you mentioned.
Now, earlier, you were talking about the recruitment process. How might the extended workplace setup also change this whole recruitment process?
Okay, so this one is very drastic. So we were working with a lot of organizations where obviously their typical methods of recruiting people, if they are still hiring, would be your job fairs, would be your career fairs, would be your walk-in interviews or walk-in applications. And at this point, that's practically not possible, right? Unless you probably do a six feet distance from each other when you're doing the interviews, but then you still will not be able to get your critical volumes. So there are technologies in place. You can do virtual recruitment job fairs. You can do video interviews. And in fact, because there are video capabilities now that are practically present in a lot of technologies we're working with, right? You can do more. You don't even have to be on the other side interviewing an applicant. You can
Mhm.
shoot a video, they can record their answers, and you can watch and review as you see fit. You can pass this on to business managers. It's easier for the company to process applications. But another thing to look at is on the perspective of the applicant. It's also easier for them because now there are limitations in transportation, there are limitations in logistics. So you definitely want solutions that are also easy for your applicants to get on board with. So whether that's interviewing, onboarding, filling out requirements, or filling out their CVs online, there are so many technologies that you can explore to get that done today. And companies need to face that shift because this is the now normal. This is what they have to deal with if you really want to hire volume and actually to hire at all. So you definitely want to explore a different way and a rethink of your recruitment process.
But do you think this might prove to be a setback, at least for those job seekers who are in areas with poor connectivity? We're talking possibly rural areas here.
Yes, absolutely. There could be setbacks, but again, there are also technologies that have overcome that bandwidth issue. So before, when we were watching Facebook video on our phones, it would always lag. But if you look today, right, anyone just watches videos on YouTube and Facebook, and it's so easy to load them. And that's something to think about when we're implementing any sort of technology for the organization of today. Is how capable is it to be running on the kind of bandwidth that we have, and how efficient is it in addressing the objectives that we have, whether that's in recruitment, learning and development, or overall company objectives.
And that
Yes.
leads me to my next question here. How does this change the requirements or at least the need for seekers to actually upskill?
Okay. Very, very good input. We're not just expecting companies to level up. We're also expecting applicants and job seekers to level up. So they have to get on board with these technologies because even when they get hired, they're going to start work in a very virtual setup. And if the application process alone, they're not able to already bridge that gap and learn the new skills and learn the new technologies, how can we expect them to be left alone in their home, working on supporting clients, working on documents, working on files? So that's two parts there. It's leveling up the organization, but also it's forced digital disruption for applicants for sure.
Okay, thank you for your insights. And definitely, this new model that we're experiencing in terms of the workplace here, it's really going to require employees, companies, at the same time, job seekers to actually up the game. Thank you very much for your insights.
Absolutely.
And Vera, CEO of
Thank you,
Talent.
Jess. Thank you for having me. Bye.